The Legend of Zelda, a franchise filled with some of the best games on the planet. However, recently I heard about one that I had never played before, and it's known as the Valley of the Flood, a mysterious game that has been the subject of much speculation and intrigue in the Zelda community. It popped up out of nowhere and people were blown away by it all, and so many fans wondered if it's real or just a myth. And since we cover a lot of games like this on the channel, I would say it's about time that we explore the history and lore of Valley of the Flood, delving into its unique gameplay and features, and ultimately try to uncover the truth about this weird game. So join us as we journey into the Valley of the Flood, a game with a dark setting unlike any seen in the series so far, in order to discover what secrets it truly holds. Now let's dive right in. But first, introducing my new store, Wily.gg, the place to buy your new games and get your hands on eShop cards for Nintendo as well as Xbox. And don't forget, use code Wily at checkout to save 10%. Now let's continue. Now all of this started a long time ago, when Nintendo was king due to the success of the Wii and DS console. Especially because they also released a Super Mario and Zelda title that were a smash hit, with one allowing you to discover space, and the other showed the dark side of the world of Zelda. Both of these games were incredibly popular, and the Zelda game known as Twilight Princess even became the best-selling title in the entire series, beating Ocarina of Time. And so Nintendo fans were on the edge of their seat as soon as they heard anything from Nintendo. And in 2008, they got some new info on a very unique project that they were working on. In 2008, a secret interview with Eiji Aonuma, one of the most famous developers at Nintendo, was leaked on the IGN forums. And in this interview, Aonuma revealed all kinds of details about a new game in the Legend of Zelda series called Valley of the Flood, which was being developed for the Wii or Wii U. Now this was a title that we had never heard of before, but apparently it used to be known as Project Deluge. However, when you tried to Google this project name, you won't find much. So there were no leaks when it was known under this other name. Now according to the interview, Valley of the Flood was set between Ocarina of Time and the Wind Waker on the Zelda timeline, and it followed the story of the Great Flood as it affected the character Link and his entire family. Now according to the lore of the series, the Great Flood is a divine punishment inflicted upon Hyrule by the goddesses as a means of purging the land of evil. Because after the events of Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf was sealed away in the Sacred Realm. However, he eventually escaped, and the hero of the series, Link, didn't appear to stop him. And thanks to this, Ganondorf took over the entirety of Hyrule. And so the goddesses decided to flood the land in order to wipe out the evil and start anew. Now, the Great Flood is said to have caused the creation of the Great Sea, a vast ocean that covers most of the world as we see in the Wind Waker. And the remnants of Hyrule can be found scattered throughout the Great Sea, including the ruins of the Sunken Kingdom and the various islands that dot the ocean. And so Valley of the Flood would cover this major event in the series. And the title was described as having a darker, more technologically advanced world with a more detailed storyline and improved gameplay mechanics. Now, surprisingly enough, players were supposed to take on the role of a delusional boy who believed that he was the hero of time, and so he would attempt to stop Ganondorf and prevent the world from being flooded by the goddesses. In the game, he would be a traveling swordsman with his family, who tries to save the kingdom by collecting 3 sacred earth relics, all while Princess Zelda isn't really convinced that he is the real hero of time. This type of storyline has never been seen in the series before, and in general, a twist like this is not commonplace in the Zelda franchise. Aside from this, the game was also said to have a greater sense of psychological peril, and to feature more cinematics as well as character development than previous Zelda games. So in a way, it was incredibly experimental, just like Majora's Mask was back in the day, which can lead to a hit or a miss when it comes to sales. As you can imagine, the leaked interview caused a huge stir in the gaming community, with many fans eagerly anticipating the release of this game. In the end, we never got another game like the Wind Waker on a home console because of its failure in the beginning. The only thing Nintendo created was a spin-off series for the DS, and this was also partially because of Twilight Twilight Princess's huge success right away, because they were actually working on a Wind Waker sequel or prequel before Twilight Princess came out, but they cancelled this project because fans weren't happy with the Wind Waker. I covered this in 2 other videos actually, so I won't repeat myself, but you can check out those videos after this one. But it seems like this project was revived in the end, well, at least according to this rumor. However, as more and more people began to examine the details of this supposed game, it became clear that something wasn't quite right. Despite the convincing nature of the interview, there were several inconsistencies and discrepancies that raised red flags for many. For one, the interviewee was only known as Kyle, and there was no information available about who he was or how he had obtained this information. This was already very sketchy. Due to the low amount of information, people couldn't do any research on who this interviewer really was, or is, or anything. Additionally, the details of the game seemed to be too good to be true, with many fans questioning how Nintendo could have kept such a major project a secret for so long. Sure, there was more info out there on another Wind Waker-like Zelda game, but nothing that was mentioned in this interview was ever leaked. Aside from that, we always knew that they wanted to make a sequel to the Wind Waker that takes place on land. Evidence of this can be found everywhere, from Nintendo confirming this to leftovers in the files of Twilight Princess. Heck, in the Twilight Princess remake for the Wii U, we can even see potential leftovers of this title that hint towards the fact that it's a sequel, not a prequel. Because you can actually see Link fighting what looks like the Helmer King, which was one of the bosses from the Wind Waker. So all of this was a bit fishy. Who did the interview? How did they keep it a secret? And what happened to this project in the end? All of it didn't make sense. And as expected, it turned out that The Legend of Zelda Valley of the Flood was nothing more than an elaborate hoax. Despite the widespread belief that the game was real, Nintendo officially denied any involvement in the project. And Eiji Aonuma released a statement saying that he had never given an interview about a game called Valley of the Flood. And eventually, the whole thing was revealed to be a prank, perpetuated by a group of individuals who wanted to see how far they could take the hoax before it was actually exposed. Now, while the idea of a dark, psychological Zelda game certainly had its appeal, which we also saw in 2000 with Majora's Mask, it was ultimately just a pipe dream. So there you have it, the story of The Legend of Zelda Valley of the Hoax, not Flood. Now, while it's certainly disappointing to learn that the game was never real, it's interesting to look back and see how the hoax played out and how it managed to fool so many people. In the end, it just goes to show you can't always believe everything you read online, and it's always important to do your own research and fact check before getting too excited. Heck, we have seen this in other videos I've made as well, but not all of them are lies. Some of them are actually true, so be sure to check out more of my videos if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was one I had on the list for a long time because the premise is interesting, the whole thing is interesting, there's a grain of truth to it because there was actually a Wind Waker sequel in the making that was actually 100% fact, no lies, real, no cap. So I hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting at least. Yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'm currently cooking ribs for New Year's Eve, so I'm gonna check on those. Bye everybody! And no, you can't have a rib, you sneaky son of a...